Jim Allister.
So, what are your objections to the content of the Spotlight programme?
Is this a point of a conflicting evidence or clarity around conflicting evidence?
Very straightforward
In a
question.
previous evidence session that I gave.
Very straightforward question. What's your points of objection to the content of the Spotlight programme? If you have any, tell us what they are.
Sure I had. Whether I can give a definitive list to this committee here today or not.
Well, let's try.
I think through my answers I have given where I...
This is you now giving evidence under affirmation. I am asking you to tell us what your objections are to the content of the Spotlight programme.
And I'm not in a position to give that today in its entirety. I mean, if I was aware of such a question was going to come, I would have prepared along those lines. I can't give it, under affirmation, I can't give a definitive...
Can you tell us anything you object to in the programme?
Well, I think it's clear that I object to Councillor Palmer's recollection of the phone conversation.
You telling her it's party comes first, do what you're told, this is what we require you to do, etc.
Yes.
You object to that?
Yes.
Anything else?
Well, I think that was the main point regarding myself at this point.
And did you think that that defamed you?
I'm not a legal advisor. I have no qualifications in that regard, so I can't answer that question.
Well, you certainly threatened legal proceedings, isn't that right?
Potential proceedings, yes.
Did you ever take them?
No, if we go back to the previous evidence session that we had, I made that point clear.
So, whatever your objections were to the content of the programme, they weren't such that it motivated you to initiate any legal proceedings. Is that fair?
Well, I haven't initiated any legal proceedings.
Yes. And is that because what Mrs. Palmer was saying was true, and you knew it to be true?
No.
Then why would a man sit back and let himself be lied about and do nothing about it?
Well, I act under advice at all times. I've tried to give a defence at this committee. I give a defence to the Spotlight programme. That is my defence.
And your defence was such that you didn't have the confidence of launching into legal proceedings to challenge that which you say or seem to suggest is untrue.
As I said before, I act under advice.
I'm suggesting to you that there's a fairly clear indication of you knowing in your heart of hearts that what the lady said was true.
No, I don't accept that.
You are aware that she, on evidence under oath, continues to be very clear about the content of that phone call.
Yes.
And we now know that she told the same account, not just to Spotlight, but to the DFP inquiry.
So it appears, yes.
Are you prepared to share what you told the DFP inquiry?
No, I'm afraid, apologies, committee, but it's a matter of personnel, the fact-finding exercise, and I'm not in a position to comment on that.
The ultimate outcome might be a personnel matter, but it suggests to you the collection of facts is exactly that. Fact-finding matter touching wholly upon the facts that this committee is seeking to get to the bottom of. But you don't wish to share that with us.
I'm not in a position to share details pertaining to the fact-finding exercise of this committee.
Well, you're in a position if you wish. You don't wish. Isn't that correct?
I reiterate my previous answer, Chair. Apologies.
Now, on this point that Mr. Brady asked you about the Minister having told the View, first of all, that you didn't make the phone call at his behest, and then that he didn't know he'd made the phone call. You knew the minister had told the View that?
Yes.
Yes. So before the minister came to give evidence to this committee, knowing what you knew what your evidence was going to be, did you have a discussion with the minister? Well, how are we going to handle the fact that you told the View that it wasn't made at my behest, at his behest, and he didn't even know about it?
I'm clear on my actions throughout all of this, and I've given that as best as I can. The minister clearly felt that he had, in hindsight, after the programme, been in part of discussions before the phone call and was aware of it after as well.
Yes, but I was asking you, had you any discussion with the minister before he came to give evidence about how to handle this conflict?
I can't recall any particular discussion regarding
Any particular discussion? What does that mean?
Chair, I don't
Whether you
know
had a discussion or you had not.
if that's not clear or not. I'm trying to answer as best I can. I don't recall any particular discussion.
So can you offer, and you might well say, well, ask Mr. Causland, but can you have you any light to shed on how the minister came to tell the View one thing and this committee another?
It will be a matter for Mr. McCausland.
And you've had no discussions that would shed any light on that?
As I previously answered, yeah.
You would agree they're entirely contradictory?
That's a matter for this committee.
Now, in terms of the draft apologies that you were asked about, and this salient point that in all of those we've seen, there is this unambiguous statement that both you and Mrs. Palmer were agreed the only issue discussed during the conference meeting was the board's consideration of the contractor Red Sky. Is that correct?
I'm not getting into matters relating to the internal party discussion.
Sorry, why not?
I'm not sure I have to answer that question, Chair. I've said,
Well,
Mr.
you don't have to answer the question, but it's a fair question.
yeah.
But having said that he didn't want to, Chairman,
Well, but just let me
But,
know.
right, just a wee second. I mean, the evidence, the witness at all times is, and within his rights, not to answer any question. But that's not to suggest that he's not obliged to hear some questions. And he may decide to answer them whatever way you decide to do that. And
You're not obliged to hear the same question 6 times.
And I will allow that on a number of occasions. I will not allow that to be overstated, and I've done that repeatedly. I've stopped people asking the same question on a number of occasions, but I think it's fair that the questions are put. The witness is obliged to hear questions. He'll answer them whatever way he chooses, and the committee will draw its conclusions on the basis of that.
Mr. Brimstone, you remember 20 minutes ago taking an affirmation at the start of your evidence?
Yes, I do.
You remember uttering the words as part of that affirmation, I will give the committee all such information and assistance as I can.
Yes.
And here we are 20 minutes later, you refusing to give the committee information on this matter. How do you square that with your affirmation?
Well, I don't believe that I can share matters
Why not?
of internal party matter.
Why not?
Can I?
You can tell us. You're choosing not to tell us. And your affirmation was that I will give the committee all such information and assistance as I can.
And I don't believe I'm in a position to share internal party matters with this committee.
So
Chairman,
you're happy to breach your affirmation?
Chairman,
All right, so hold
he
on.
has made it quite clear, and you've pointed out he is entitled to decide if he is going to answer a particular question or he is not. Now, this bullying
here we go again.
Another
Yeah.
distraction.
Well,
Buying
that's what
time
he-
for the
Hold on,
witness.
Because that's what
gentlemen,
he's
hold
This is
on.
buying
That's what he's
time for the
Gentlemen,
witness.
hold on a
That's
second.
what he's
Time
It's a
for-
well-tried
Gentlemen,
tactic.
hold on a
Brimstone.
second.
It's not buying, it's not buying
Excuse me,
time for
Sammy
the witness.
Wilson.
It's making
Sammy
sure
Wilson,
he
be
doesn't
quiet for a
act like
moment.
he's some-
Sammy, just hold on a second. We're not going to allow this to degenerate. As I've said here before, won't accept the kind of disruption we're going to likely to get here today. Hopefully that will not happen. It won't happen again. If it does happen, you know what the result will likely be. But that will not
Let's
buy
not go down
time.
that route, Chairman.
We will go down whatever route
No,
I decide
let
to
us
do
not
so,
go down
as
that
you well
route.
know, Mr Campbell.
No, it
So
will not
we
go
will
down
do
that route. And if it does, Chairman, go down this route, as I have said before, there will be very serious consequences for
Fine.
the future investigation by this committee into the inquiry.
That's your view, and you're
Threat.
to have your view.
No, it's not, it's not.
I
This
will-
is the fifth time
Excuse me,
this witness has
gentlemen,
been
just
before
hold on a
the
second,
committee.
Mr Campbell. You're subject, like the rest of us around this table, to
Yes.
the procedures which govern
And I'm quite happy to
conduct of
abide
this
by them.
committee and inquiry, and you will abide by them.
Yes, and I've always
You
done
will.
so as well.
So therefore, I make it very clear, so just, I want this to be conducted on a professional and orderly basis. If it's not and people want to disrupt it, we have the option ultimately to suspend. I will have no hesitation in doing that, but want to make it also very clear that will not allow time for anybody to avoid dealing with questions. People may wish to not answer a question, or they'll answer them in a way in which they're legally entitled to do, but they will still face the questions. And
There
that's
should
what
be
will happen.
no
Whether
admission
we,
of failure by any chair by
that's
adjourning the
your,
discussions.
if you wish to
That is an
disrupt,
admission of failure.
if you wish to disrupt the business of this
Whether Mr.
inquiry,
Allister
I
would
will
like to
conduct it.
prolong this even
Mr.
further
Campbell,
and
Mr.
get a
Campbell,
sick bite at the
Mr.
chair.
Campbell, I advise you to be orderly.
I'm
Advise you to
orderly
be
at all
orderly.
times,
Well,
Chairman.
this meeting will suspend, and I will do that
I am
very
orderly
quickly.
at all
And I've
times.
already given notice, I'm giving notice now. If it continues, it will happen. Sorry, Fra McCann, please,
Be
just
orderly.
remain silent at the moment. We'll get this back on track again. Okay, so just making it very clear, push come to shove, further disruptions, I will suspend the business of the committee and the inquiry.
Take the consequences then.
Yeah, and there will be consequences.
there should
And
be.
that consequence is a lack of public confidence in the conduct of members of this committee. And the failure of this inquiry to do this business
lack
in
of
the next
confidence in
petition's
your
time.
chairmanship of
Well,
audit.
people will decide on that, and I think if it's decided already, Fra, please no further intervention. So I want to move back on to the evidence. I've said from day one, I'm allowing members to pose a number of questions. If other members want to ask questions, indicate to me that they wish to do so, and I'll bring them in a timely fashion. At this moment in time, Jim Allister has the floor. Jim, just again remind people that I will allow people to pose questions. Witnesses may decide not to answer a question, but they are obliged to hear the questions. I will allow a number of questions put on a number of occasions. I will not allow them to be made repeatedly when it's quite clear the witness has made his decision. But I remind the witness that the committee will make its judgment on the basis of the evidence it hears from the witness and other witnesses. So, this is your opportunity to clarify issues which clearly, in terms of the evidence presented to this committee, are quite contradictory and quite starkly so. So I'm allowing members to ask questions. I will stop members asking a question repeatedly if it goes on for too long. Jim.
Mr. Brimstone, you've had 5 minutes, courtesy of that interruption, to reflect upon the affirmation you took that you would give the committee all such information and assistance as you can. Having had that opportunity to reflect, do you wish to help this committee by telling us if that repeated declaration in the 5 drafts that both were agreed, the only issue discussed during the conversation was the board's consideration of the contractor red sky? Or you wish to take the opportunity to tell us if that's the truth?
I'm not prepared to answer internal party-related matters, questions relating to internal party-related matters.
You put that above your affirmation.
I've answered the question, Chair.
Mrs. Palmer told us that the genesis of this attempted apology went through 5 drafts, which was mutually provided to you and to her. Is that correct?
I'm not prepared to answer questions relating to internal party matters.
And that you had the opportunity on each of those occasions to amend and to change that which appeared in the respective drafts. Is that correct?
Again, I refer to my previous answer.
And that you significantly failed to take that opportunity to write out, to take out the affirmation that both were agreed that the only issue discussed was the contractor red sky. Is that correct? 5 times you failed to take it out.
And I refer to my previous answer.
And 5 times you failed to take it out, I suggest to you, because it is the truth. Is that right?
Sorry, I refer to my previous answer.
And that there wasn't discussion such as you previously told us about VUA maintain or anything else. It was about red sky.
I've given my outline of the phone conversation in my evidence on the 16th of October, page 3. That is my recollection of the phone conversation, and I stand by that.
If that was correct, why wouldn't you then take the 5-fold opportunity to change the draft to put that in?
And I refer to my previous answer.
Chairman, is Mr. Allister hard of hearing,
Mr. Allister is asking questions which he's entitled to ask, and I've
which is now
already,
asked 6 times?
I've already made a ruling on
Good
that.
questions.
The witness can answer or not, and he's given his answers, and the committee will duly note the answers and take cognizance of the weight of the answers.
And they'll note the
against
questions as
evidence
well, I hope.
presented. Absolutely. And you'd be, of course, a member of the committee involved in that assessment of the evidence.
Yeah.
You said, Mr. Brimstone, you said to Mr. Brady that there are parts of this redacted, you don't know what's there. You have the original drafts that were sent to you, do you not?
I'm not prepared to comment on internal party matters.
But you're prepared to suggest to this committee, oh, mystery of mysteries, there's matters redacted. But this committee knows from evidence already given under oath that you, like Mrs. Palmer, were sent these very documents in their unredacted form. So you do know what has been redacted.
I'm not prepared to answer questions written to internal party matters.
I did suggest to you early on, Stephen, just for the record again, I did suggest to you early on that when you did suggest, which is why I intervened, that when you did suggest that by way of redaction, that the assertion made by Mrs. Palmer was actually inaccurate.
Well,
That's why I drew to your attention that in all of the copies, that same assertion is there in black and white. I'm just drawing that to attention.
I was just making the point, Chair, with
So,
regard to your assertion.
The point I'm making is you were straying into what I would suggest, giving an explanation about the draft document, but otherwise, from that one intervention, you've been saying you're not prepared to discuss it. I'm just making that point.
If I can clarify that, Chair, I'm just clarifying the point, Chair, that the line you referred to in the 5th version of this draft is clearly redacted, and we can't read what the remainder of that line says. That was the point I was making at the start, Chair.
But you're not in a position to give an explanation to the inquiry to contradict the words that we have in front of us. That's all I'm saying to you. You need to understand that.
Yeah, the partial sentence that you have in front of you, yeah.
But what's there is there in front of us. There's nothing by way of you said to contradict that.
That's correct.
We have to consider that
That's correct, yeah.
in our evidence assessment.
And I'm suggesting to you, you know full well what has been redacted, because some of them are your handiwork.
And again, Chair, I'm not in a position to answer questions of an internal party matter.
Well, you are in a position, but you won't.
Which is said in
Okay,
numerous.
right,
Now, let me ask you this.
I'm allowed
Have you
Jim,
yet recalled?
Jim, just a second. I've allowed a range of questions there.
Yeah, I'm finished with that point.
Okay.
I think hearing aids should be supplied,
Okay.
Chairman.
Okay, we'll just proceed, Jim.
I think Mr. Campbell, when he lets himself down, comments.
Can't supply them.
I said earlier on, the conduct of this.
There are a lot of people, and this committee knows it full well, dealing with people with great disabilities, afflicted with hearing loss, and to have a trite comment made like that by Mr. Campbell
Don't
reflects
try and
very
shift the
poorly
emphasis,
upon
Jim.
him.
Don't
Well, I
try
was
and
Very
shift the
poorly.
emphasis.
Let me just remind members again that this is an inquiry in public
Then on
session.
hold, stop digging,
Mr.
Jim.
Campbell,
Indeed.
Mr. Campbell, I'm speaking. Mr. Campbell, I'm speaking from the position of the chair. Okay, no further intervention at this stage again. So I'm making it very clear that this is in public session. The general public will have made their mind up or will make their mind up on the conduct and behaviour of members. So I would advise members to remind themselves of that. There already has been a fair amount of public commentary around the nature of this inquiry on more than one occasion. And that's not something I think it does this committee or any member around this table a service. So let's stick to what our statutory obligations are in a responsible and professional manner. So, Jim.
Mr. Brimstone, have you yet been able to remember where you were when you made the phone call to Mrs. Palmer?
No, I wasn't in a position to answer that question clearly on the 13th of November, and I'm not today. I can't recall exactly where I was when I made the phone call. No.
Can you recall who was with you?
No, I assumed I was on my own, but
Can you recall going back and discussing it with the minister?
yes, that was the general course of events for such a phone call, yeah.
And can you recall how soon you did that?
It would have likely been shortly after the phone call, as I stated in the 13th of November on page 6 of the evidence.
Can you recall if the minister was awaiting the outcome of that phone call?
I'm not sure that question was asked me before. You said if I
It may not, but I'm asking it now. Do you recall if the minister was awaiting for you to come back to him about the outcome of the phone call?
No, I'm assuming at some point he would have expected the phone call to have taken place and for him to be given a readout on the phone conversation.
Did you report the phone call to anyone else?
Not that I can recall, no.
In terms of the email that was sent on the 5th of July, Mr. Sands has been very emphatic to this committee that came about by you coming to his room at 7:30 on the morning of the 5th of July 2011 and asking him to send it. Your evidence previously has been, well, it's been somewhat varied between you can't recall or that you didn't go to his room. In light of what Mr. Sands has told us under oath or under affirmation, what do you now say about how it came about that email was sent when it was sent?
I go back to my earlier evidence, and still I cannot recall the precise conversation with Mr. Sands, and I still hold the view that I can only remember on one occasion being in the lighthouse building at that time of the morning, and it wasn't on that occasion.
So are you saying to us under affirmation that you didn't go to his room that morning?
No, that's not what I said. I said that I cannot recall a conversation with Mr. Sands, and I cannot recall any other occasion except one when I was in the lighthouse building at that time of the morning.
Well, you're not suggesting to us, I take it, that Mr. Sands of his own volition sent this email?
I never suggested that.
No. You are accepting, I take it, that the genesis of the email is an instruction or a request from you?
Well, let's just read the email, just for clarity here. And if you don't mind, Chair, I'll read it onto the record. It was from Michael Sands, sent on the 5th of July at 7:40 a.m. to Maria McLaughlin, CC'd to Stuart Cuddy, the Acting Chief Executive of the Housing Executive, and Jim Wilkinson, the Director of Housing and the Department for Social Development. It reads, Brian, Minister Spad thinks that 6 months is too long a time frame for continuation by the Red Sky Administrator. Our advice from CPD is 91 days, open parentheses, i.e. under the EU limit, close parentheses, to complete the tender exercise once all paperwork is prepared. So if we allowed to the end of the month for paperwork, comma, say 1 month plus 3 for the tender exercise equals 4 months in total, could the question re 4 months be put to BDO as below rather than 6? Regards, Michael.
And?
My conversation with Mr. Sands, looking at this email, was around the fact that I felt that 6 months was too long a time frame, taking into consideration the CPD advice around the 91 days. I cannot see any instruction there at all.
When I said instruction, I used it in the context of the instruction to send the email.
Well, I don't know whether there was how I can give an instruction. I'm unclear. I well could understand a conversation taking place, and I accept that a conversation took place that instigated this email. But whether that's an instruction or whether it's a follow-on from the discussion.
Let's take the word instruction out of it, if you don't like that. Do you accept that this email was sent not by Mr. Sands of his own volition, but upon request from you?
No, I don't think we can read that into this email at all.
Well, never mind what we can read into the email. Giving your evidence from your memory,
Yep.
was this email sent at your request?
I can't answer that question. All I can say, reading the email here, that was clear that we had a discussion around the fact that I, as Special Advisor, felt that the 6 months time frame was too long. And that was clearly in around some discussion that had been had around the Central Procurement Directorate advice of 91 days.
Are you suggesting to this committee that Mr. Sands, of his own volition, then decided at 7:30 in the morning, oh, I'd better email the housing executive and tell them the latest thinking that I picked up from somewhere of Mr. Brimstone?
Well, no, we emailed the housing executive asking if a question could be put to the administrator.
Yes.
Of a reduction.
At your behest, Mr. Brimstone.
You can read that into it. I don't read that into it.
Well, that's very clearly the evidence to this committee from Mr. Sands. At your request, with you standing in his room.
And I'm reading the email. As I said, I can't recall the conversation.
You take great refuge in not being able to recall things.
It's 3.5 years ago, Mr. Allister.
It's 3.5 years ago about incidents which have been hardly out of your mind, I would suggest, in those 3.5 years, given the notoriety that is attached to this matter.
I've given my answer as best as I can.
So what are we to conclude? That you didn't know the email was going? You did know the email was going? What are we to conclude on that?
Well, I think it's safe to conclude that I would have been aware that the housing executive would be asked.
At your request?
Well, whether at my request or following a discussion and mutual understanding or mutual agreement, this was the appropriate way forward, that the housing executive would be asked if, based on the CPD advice, it would be more appropriate to look for 4 months as opposed to 6 months.
So are you or are you not accepting that that email went at your request?
No, I can't, on the basis of that email, accept that.
So does that drive us to conclude it went from Mr. Sands at his own volition?
No, people can have a conversation.
Where's the middle ground?
Well, the middle ground is that people can have a conversation. And it may not have been just Mr. Sands and myself. I can't answer that question. People can have a conversation, and the outcome of that conversation, which may well have been instigated, the conversation may well have been instigated by myself. The outcome of that is an agreed way forward.
So you're leaving the committee in limbo with a very clear, affirmed evidence of Mr. Sands that it's a request from you standing in his room to send this email, and the very email cites you, that evidence, and you, as so often, saying, I can't really recall.
So if we look at the first line, Mr. Allister, it cites myself.
Yes.
Okay. The second line starts with the word "our." Okay, not the SPAD's advice. It's our advice. Now, I put the question to you: as who do you think the "our" includes?
Well, I think Mr. Brimstone says you are the minister's advisor, and this, I assume, is the product, and I'll come back to that, of discussion with the minister, because I think you told us you wouldn't have done this on your own. That the "our" referred to is either the department or the minister or both.
And who's the email from?
It's from a housing officer in the department.
Who's saying our advice?
Our advice, the department's advice.
Yes, thank you.
And isn't that because you didn't require, or did you require this email to go without the knowledge of the minister?
How are you reading that into?
Well, I'm asking you. Was the minister aware that this email was going to be sent
I would
at
imagine.
7:30 in the morning?
Well,
He may not have known the time, but it was going to be sent to the Housing Executive Board.
well, the minister may not have known a particular email was going to be sent. The minister, I would have assumed, would have been aware that the Housing Executive would have been asked, was 4 months more appropriate time frame based on the CPT advice as opposed to 6 months as had been in his original letter.
And he would have known that on foot of your discussions with the minister and giving advice to the minister as to the fact, well, maybe 6 months, which you had asked for, having previously asked for 6 weeks, maybe in fact the right figure is 4 months. You must have had that discussion at some point with the minister.
Well, I'm sure it was more than just myself. I'm sure officials
Yes.
were involved in that
Yes.
discussion as well.
Yes. And on foot of that, an email is then sent to the Housing Executive,
Yes.
citing you.
Yep. My opinion. Yes.
And I want to suggest to you, all that points very emphatically, in accordance with Mr. Sand's evidence, to you issuing the request that it go with the knowledge of the minister, I assume.
That a particular email goes, or that a request is made.
That request be conveyed before the board meets.
Yeah, I'm assuming the minister would have been aware
Yes.
that a request was going to be put to the Housing Executive or to the administrator.
And you were the messenger to send that email, to Mr. Sands to send that email.
Well, I don't accept, because I can't recall where I was when this conversation took place, nor can I recall who else was in the room when the conversation took place that instigated this email.
This email, of course, raised its head again. Isn't that right?
Yes, in the board minutes of July 2011.
Yes. And more than that, when Mrs. Palmer gave evidence to the DFP fact-finding investigation, she made very express reference to the existence of this email. Isn't that right?
I have a recollection that came up, yes, from the evidence I seen earlier on in the week, yes.
Yes. And that would have been put to you as part of the fact-finding exercise. What did you say about that?
I think I've been clear to the committee around any answers to questions relating to the fact-finding exercise, and as again I state, Chair, I'm unfortunately not in a position to answer such
You're
questions.
refusing to answer that question as well, despite your affirmation.
I am not in a position to answer questions
So
relating
you're happy to leave the committee in the position, but the only evidence we have in that is from Mrs. Palmer.
evidence relating to what?
The fact that that was raised in the fact-finding inquiry, the issue of that email. You're not confirming or denying whether it was raised with you.
Correct.
I'm suggesting to you, if it was a proper fact-finding inquiry, that having been an allegation of Mrs. Palmer, it inevitably was raised with you.
And what's the allegation?
That you were involved in the sending of an email on the morning of the board meeting on the 5th of July, giving instructions.
Where is the instruction in the email?
Yes, you want to quibble again over that, that you were involved in the sending
No.
of an email
No, I'm
on the
not.
morning
No,
of the
I'm
5th.
quibbling the fact of where is the instruction.
Yeah, well, I think it's fairly clear, conveying
Could you point out to me, Mr. Allister?
conveying to the board at your request that they wanted the board to consider an adjustment to what had previously been asked for in correspondence.
So where's the instruction?
Well, obviously, the request rather than instruction.
You argued that I was instructing the House Executive to do something.
Yes.
So where is the instruction in that email?
Well, I think the import is that you're asking the Housing Executive to consider an alternative approach, including this 4-month extension. Now, if you quibble with that being an instruction, so be it. I'll accept if you wish that that's not an instruction. But the issue is the sending of the email and how the email came to be sent. And in the fact-finding inquiry, it had been drawn to the attention of the fact-finders that it had been sent by Mrs. Palmer drew it to their attention, and I'm suggesting it inevitably then you were asked about it in the fact-finding inquiry. Were you not?
I've said I'm not prepared to answer.
Not prepared to answer.
To the fact-finding exercise.
And then, with that knowledge that somewhere out there was this email, you then set about looking for it. Is that not correct?
Well, I first became aware of the email over a year before 2 years before the fact-finding exercise.
Yes.
So I first became aware of the email in July, if not August, of 2011, not 2012 or 13, 2011.
See, I want to suggest to you that from the fact-finding exercise, you discovered about the email and then wanted to see this email, and the words of what Mrs. Palmer says Michael Sands said to her, you were going mad looking for it.
And what's Michael Sands' evidence relating to those words?
He takes some dispute with that.
Some dispute.
But let's be very clear. Let's be very clear. The initial explanation by you and Mr. Sands was, why would I be going mad looking for it? Sure, it's on the system.
Chairman,
And now we know it's not on the system.
see if
Just a second, Jim.
we move on from this.
I'm going to, well, first of all, I'm
Would
going
you, would you make it quite clear to anybody who's asking questions that they cannot, should not, and must not, in order to try and twist questions, misrepresent? Mr. Sands did not have some dispute or some query of this. Mr. Sands denied, full stop, outright, right, unequivocally, that what Mrs. Palmer said was not true, in fact, it was a lie.
that was in a separate.
He made that quite clear.
Well-
So don't let Mr. Sands' words be misrepresented in any question.
Well, don't,
Mrs. Palmer, as far as he was concerned, lied on this issue.
that's okay. That was in respect of another particular piece of evidence provided by Mrs. Palmer, so nobody should be misrepresenting ourselves in the questions that we pose as well. So, Jim, I'm going to let you finish that question and move on to our member. I want to just tease you out a couple, and I'll come back to you again.
Here, contrary to earlier evidence that this email would have been in the system, and therefore no one would need to be going mad looking for it, do you now accept that at that material time, it was not in the system?
Which system?
Which system do you think I might be referring to?
Well, there's the email system, there's the TRIM system, there's the knowledge network system. With relation to the FOI, which I'm assuming you're getting around to, they searched the TRIM system for the particular email. But that email would have been available from Mr. Sands at any time from his sent items and his own personal email.
I don't think he told us that.
Well, anybody, I'm sure in your own
You
inbox.
know that? Is that how you found it?
Well, I'm assuming you have a sent items.
Is that how it was found, Mr. Brimstone?
Well, no, I'm assuming.
Is that how it was found?
What?
This missing email,
When?
which couldn't be found for FOI, and then suddenly in April of last year was found for this committee.
Well, I would
Is that
argue,
where it was found?
I would argue that the email, I was aware of the email in July, if not August of 2011.
Yes, but Mr. Sands told us he didn't know how the email was found. Are you suggesting it was found in his sent box?
I can only assume it wasn't in the TRIM system. I think that was the evidence that was given.
It wasn't in any system that was searched for those 2 years.
Well, I'm not involved in that, so I don't know the process. But what I'm saying is the email was clearly there because the email was able to be pulled out here.
No, sorry, with respect, the email was not clearly there. Because what was it? This committee has been told is that a hard copy was eventually found. Not that it was found on a system, unless you're suggesting to us that the department has misled us.
Well,
But
no,
how this email was found.
I'm not.
What do you know about how it was
For the
found?
record, just for the record, we were advised that the email was deleted after 90 days, or it would have been deleted after 90 days, but
Yeah.
there was subsequently a hard copy. But your evidence there, you're just saying you were aware of the email or seen the email sometime before that. So,
And the month after it was sent.
well, so, but we have been given evidence that there's no sight of the email. That's in evidence.
Where did you see it the month after it was sent?
Well, I'm assuming after reading the minutes of the board minute of the Housing Executive.
Yes.
where this email was referred to,
Yes.
that I may have asked, and I don't recall ever doing this, by the way, but I may have asked to have seen it. It would have followed on.
Why would you
naturally.
do that?
Because the chairman had made an accusation about an instruction given by the political advisor, I think was how he referred to me, in the board minutes.
So did you get a copy of it at that point?
Well, the board minutes are available in the
No,
department.
did you get a copy of the email at that point?
I can't recall if I actually, whether it was a hard copy or an electronic copy or whatever, but
Was it your hard copy that was eventually found and handed over to this committee?
No,
Mr. Brimstone?
no, it wasn't.
It having been expunged from the record, is that the case?
No, it's not. I think you know that fine well.
Well, I don't.
I think you do.
Well, how would I? All this committee knows is it wasn't on the records in email form, and suddenly, mysteriously, a hard copy is whipped out and produced.
I think that.
Was that your hard copy?
No, it wasn't.
Whose hard copy was it?
I don't know. You can ask the department whose hard copy it was, but it wasn't mine.
But you would have us believe that you saw this email on the system a month after it was sent?
Whether it was on the system or whether it was a hard copy or what, but I would have been.
So you want to change your evidence in that?
No, I don't think so.
It was now maybe a hard copy you saw?
Well, I said that at the start. It may well have
No,
been a
no,
hard copy.
you were talking about it on the system, and I said, did you get it printed out to make it a hard copy?
No, I don't
And you
think
said, I can't recall.
No, I don't
So the discussion was very much on the basis of it being within the system.
Well, we'll have to wait till Hansford comes out.